Hello, I'm Oral, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. And with me is the Minister of Justice, Minister Richardson. How are you doing, Minister?
I'm blessed and grateful. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And it took a long time for us to get this going, right?
Sorry for the busy schedule, but thank you for the invitation.
I mean, you're Minister of Justice, so you have an extremely busy schedule.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. So how's it going so far? Because you were the longest serving Minister of Justice.
I am thus far. I'm grateful for that opportunity because in these capacities, you really need to have stability. You need to be able to have the opportunity to see initiatives from the start to the finish. And I'm grateful that the time we've been given, we've been able to accomplish some very positive strides. Still have a lot to be done, but I'm grateful for the accomplishments we've made thus far.
And you're the first minister who's not a man.
I like the way you said that, yes. I'm the first female Minister of Justice for St. Martin. That's quite an honor.
I'm cautious sometimes because you never know. Some people react differently when you use the word female, you know. So
really, yes, I can hear that. In our society today, there's a lot of terminologies. So I understand where you're coming from.
So when you was asked to take on this job, did you hesitate?
I did have some reservations, and that was mainly because I was a little bit intimidated by the pre-notion that you need to be thoroughly or thorough in the Dutch language, which is really not the case. But then I really prayed about it, and I got confirmation that I should take this on. And this is an assignment for me, and it has been. This is a ministry that has not received the type of attention that it should over a long period of time, and we see that. We saw the frustration and reaction of the staff. There's a lot of implementations that I have brought forward within the scope of the law. I have not created any new laws. I think that the only new policy that I published was that of the weapons policy. Oh yes, I also did with my team the parking and towing policy. But of course, a policy comes out of and cannot be made without a legal basis. So the law exists. All you do with a policy is further define specifics about how that law will be enforced. So all in all, we know that this ministry required a lot of attention. It required a lot of love. And that is what I've applied to the Ministry of Justice. I really feel like we have a lot more to go. And we are really trying our best to be able to bring some proper structure and application of law enforcement to St. Martin.
Did people tell you, well, hey, look, you don't have a law background, so you shouldn't take it?
Well, that was what people assumed, that I didn't have a legal background or a background in law. But actuality, my bachelor's is in sociology with a concentration in criminal justice. So it is my background. I just working in the Ministry of Justice this extensive is the first time that I've really applied myself in my background of study. So that was a misconception by many.
And it's a rough ministry. You're dealing with a lot of males in that particular ministry, right?
Okay, it makes it challenging and exciting.
Yeah. So what's been the most challenging part of this work for you?
The most challenging or the most attention required has been to finalize the function book of the ministry. The fact that the ministry operated since we became separate status and was the only ministry not having a complete function book was...
Why did it take so long?
I really can't say, but I am sure the fact that we had instability in our governance,
made a difference?
Government in, government out, made a significant difference because the opportunity to be able to concentrate and finalize was not there. However, from day one, I made this my priority. But we also recognize that from day one, I was faced with a whole lot of frustration. Now, I don't know if that frustration was applied because I'm a female, and the reason why it was not applied to or demonstrated when we had all the male ministers of justice prior to my person. But that's neither here nor there for me. It's really a case of the challenge was set forth. We have successfully completed that function book. We have successfully completed the rechtspositieregeling, or we can call that the legal position for, and we've expanded it that it's not just for police, but it is for all service agencies that have police-like tasks. So you have immigration, you have our national detectives. Those are all formulated now and recognized in the draft regulation that we have packaged along with the completed function book and along with the completed salary scales for the police. This whole package now is going to His Excellency. I use the term going because one of the setbacks that we did experience was last December. This package was submitted to the governor. However, it was returned to us because the full scope of the financial consequences was not presented to His Excellency as well. And when the governor is going to sign a national decree with general measures or an LBHUM of this magnitude, the reality of what the financial obligations of the country is must be presented to him simultaneously. And though we had a reservations of 2.5 million on the budget, it was not sufficient. It didn't give the governor the full understanding of what this budget year will be subject to disburse, as well as the multi-annual budget. So that multi-annual budget is what was lacking. So where are we now? This package, as the Ministry of Justice was required to do from a legal standpoint, is complete. We even had a judge. I would like to say greetings to Judge Gerald DeYoung, thanking him for doing that legal review for us. And we came out with flying colors on it. So the aspect that we're at now is that the Ministry of Finance has to give that comfort. But we do know that our budget has been monitored by the CFT for a long time. There were a lot of budget cuts. So there's a budget amendment being prepared. And inclusive in that amendment are reservations to ensure that the personnel of the Ministry of Justice are going to receive what is due to them in, of course, the installment. Because we had a good working relationship with the CCSU, the civil registry, the civil union for civil servants. We had the opportunity to have some good discussions, a good dialogue with them, dialogues of understanding, whereby we were able to secure a covenant. Initially, it was for 5 years, but after the calculations were complete and the realization of the magnitude of debt, which is 44 million guilders, that is due to staff, we had to revisit that 5-year agreement because it's not realistic. So thankfully, with the cooperation of our unions that are a part of the CCSU, we were able to extend that period to 10 years so that Country St. Martin would be able to execute these payments, these retroactive payments, within the span of 10 years. Now, it does depend on, let's say if you have a retiree, you would not expect a retiree to have to wait 10 years. It does weigh in on the amount that you're supposed to receive. If your amount is 100,000 guilders, then yes, you're a recipient that would have to work with us to be able to disburse those over the 10 years. If your figure is only 5 or 10,000 guilders, and that could be paid off in 1 or 2 years and such. So there are different scenarios that we were able to, in our working relationship and inclusion, of course, it is mandatory, it is by law required. We were able to come to a consensus with the CCSU, and that is where we are.
Was there any discussions as to giving them tax exemptions in order to compensate for that?
That is a discussion that has been on the table. The tax department was contacted, and their position is each individual will have to come to them once they are aware of what their total sum would be, and then they would work that out. But I'm not just leaving it there. There was a request from staff for an opportunity for a tax expert to come and have a discussion with them, let them ask the questions that they have, so they could could kind of preset their understanding as to when they do go before the tax office, that they can engage in a conversation that is understanding. So I did reach out to at least 2 institutions, and I'm just waiting for their response and to see which one of them will take on the task of meeting and doing a seminar on tax consequences when you're going to receive lump sums.
So you're saying everyone is happy now?
The experience has been, they are happy that such progress has been made. But of course, the ability to receive now would be even nicer. But then you also have those who are very conservative. And so I use the word conservative because it is important for them to understand what calculations has been done, how those calculations were done, and how did you identify the figure I'm entitled to, what benefits did I have before, what tax implications will apply. So there are those who are, whilst happy that we have arrived, they still want to take their time so there are no surprises in the end.
Do you think that because of the length of time
Yes.
this took, the department lost some police officers who left to force during that time? Right?
Yeah, I don't doubt that some persons have left due to their frustration and or opportunities that have presented themselves. Within the forces that we have some persons that are, they don't necessarily want to make law enforcement, at least being, let's say, a police officer, their only career. They want to branch out into some. I know officers who've branched out into other sectors of justice or other sectors of careers. But I do believe that the fact that the matter had not been regulated in all this time, indeed, contributed to some of them leaving.
No. When I went to school,
among other reasons.
when I went to school in America, and I would see police officers work off duty at different business, etc. Is that permitted here in the law?
You have to ask. You have to ask for that. So yes, it is permitted. But one of the things that we want to be very careful with is officers using their service weapon for other services. That is a very dangerous line to cross. But indeed, the law allows for an officer or any employee to be able to ask for permission to be able to be in service somewhere else, in their own business, etc.
Now, having a firearm license in St. Martin is extremely difficult. I know a lot of people complain about over the years, way before you, the issues involved and the process. Is that any different today than, say, 5-6 years ago? I published a new policy, gun policy, and the one from 2016, I was of the impression or the belief that if we need to operate a car, you have to get a driver's license, right? Right.
And with getting a driver's license, then you determine what kind of car you want to get. And then when you get that car, it depends on the type of car, the value, how much insurance you pay, how much road tax you pay, and all of these things. I feel the same way about the ability to operate a gun. I feel you need to have a gun permit or a gun license, and then you get a permit for the specific type of weapon you'd like to handle, right? Because we need to know that you can handle that type of weapon. So that is one of the highlights of the policy that I believe we've been successful to produce, amongst other upgrades, so psychological tests and so forth, to know that you have sound mind to operate such a dangerous item. But what I do see still is that, when you're getting that legal advice, because there's a committee and the applications go through this committee, and this committee will come and submit to the minister their suggestion. And I say suggestion, quote unquote, because it still seems to come back as a debate with the minister if the minister does not agree with a decision you've made. One of the discussions that continues to happen is what they call the grandfather clause. So individuals within our community who have maintained permits of carrying weapons for some of them even over 40 years. But individuals who sit at the table are of the opinion that not because you've carried a weapon that long means that you should continue. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that. And I'll say that here. I disagree with that because what has that individual done to show you that they are not fit to carry that weapon? Their medical is good. They are still that individual in our community that is business oriented, and for whatever reasons that were presented in their particular package between now and 40 years ago is still the circumstance. So for what reason are we denying this individual? That's one aspect. But another aspect is the legal advice likes to say that we have a restrictive law. So the law is restrictive. However, the entities who have to tackle the illegal weapons within our community, I don't see enough happening there. So that scale is not balanced. And I continue to speak of that with the various entities, be it PSM, the OM's office, even the legal department. I want them to understand we have to bring a balance in our community where illegal weapons are being dealt with on the island. And then you have 2 feet to stand on to tell someone who is asking for a permit in a legal fashion, no. So until then, we have to be able to address what's really happening within our community.
Actually, customs fall under the Ministry of Finance?
Justice.
Okay.
Yes.
In the former Nelson, it was just the opposite.
I know. In most territories, it's under finance.
I'm surprised.
Yeah. That it falls under justice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess because we don't have the type of customs here that handle goods in terms of looking at the invoices and
well, they do. But what it is because we are a free port.
Yeah.
And that is the main reason that customs falls under justice. So we are, just like how you have immigration that has to manage the importing of people or the incoming of people, customs has the responsibility on the import of goods. So we have to be able to protect our borders with what is being imported to St. Martin. And I've been coming down very heavy on the customs department to be able to enforce their authority at the borders. So for example, if you follow me in the news, one of the things that I am combating is that of counterfeit products coming into St. Martin. It is imposing on our health. A lot of persons don't see that because when they hear counterfeit, they think of apparel, they think of clothing, they think of bags, etc. But it's
also medication.
Thank you very much. It goes way deeper than just clothing, and even clothing. The dyes that are used to make the clothes, if they aren't manufactured in a healthy and proper environment, these dyes, when we perspire, can go into our pores, which causes illnesses, right? And we don't know where we're getting them from. Perfumes and colognes, if they are falsely manufactured, these things we're literally spraying directly onto our skin and absorb into our bodies. These are unhealthy. Products that we eat, as you just mentioned, pharmaceuticals. These are all the responsibility of our customs department, not just narcotics, not just weapons, not just money that should not be processed in that manner, but it goes beyond that in terms of the authority of the customs department. And so our counterfeit conference that we had last year, it's coming up again in October, the 19th and the 20th, and that woke up a lot of territories around us. It woke up even the brands, and I don't know if you saw in a newspaper on the front page.
They gave you good reviews.
Yes, because for so long, St. Martin has been a territory that the brands want to be a part of, but our government was failing to protect them. Yes, the responsibility of the customs department protecting the fake items from coming in and being within our market to sell continue to plummet our economic stance. And so, my goal is to be able to ensure that every one of our agencies are operating within their legal ability, regardless to what persons in the public may feel, because it benefits them in certain ways. Now, I'm not looking for St. Martin to be a totally luxury based country, but I'm looking for that balance.
You have to protect the luxury brands, by the way.
Yes.
And I think that's important.
Yes, we're looking for that balance. Yeah. And right is right and wrong is wrong. And at the end of the day, the import and sale of counterfeit items is constituted as a subversive crime. It is a crime. We have the national risk assessment currently underway, and in that report we'll be able to see a little bit more about the reality of how we have been facilitating this level of crime within our community, and it must discontinue.
Well, it's so important that you're doing that, because so often people don't realize what it does.
Correct.
And I admire the French government. They take a very strict stand
there
against
you go.
it. Yeah.
So we had an attorney here, Attorney Fleming Lake, from Anguilla, and Keisha Fleming Lake. And she and I had a very extensive conversation about the reality, because in another conversation I was having recently, they brought that up. They said the French is very strict with it. So how is it that it's coming in on the French side? I said it's coming in on the French side through us. The same way Anguilla is saying it's coming to Anguilla through us. So our import at our Dutch borders, we have to crack down on it, because we're affecting not just our community here in St. Martin, but it is also going over into other territories. So I'm looking forward to our counterfeit conference, second annual, coming up in October. I have been already communicated to. There are a lot of brands that are coming. There are a lot of experts that are coming. There are a lot of legal minds. We had a lot of legal minds last time. Stacia was here, and they as well wanted to have just one day of discussions where pharmaceuticals are concerned. So I think that's going to be a very intense conversation, but also awareness. So, you have a lot of merchants who appreciate being able to pay less so that they can manage within their markets. But paying less doesn't always mean that it is the best. It's the good quality. Lotions that we're administering to our skin, there's so much. There's so
food.
much.
I mean, there's so many
consumption
issues
on food
right
and
now.
drinks, etc. Cigarettes, alcohol. It's a lot. And I would appreciate it if we work together to raise the bar for St. Martin.
A lot of work as a Minister of Justice. What about border protection?
Border protection, so immigration. That's a very hot and sensitive topic, right?
Well, before you respond, right, Minister, we've heard a lot of talk.
Yes.
Long before you became minister, long before we became a country within the kingdom, all right? We've always had this discussion on border protection. And there were many people in St. Martin who felt that it was our responsibility to determine who will come in and who will stay out, right?
Okay.
Now, you as Minister of Justice, we've heard many issues coming from The Hague in terms of border protection. Who's really in charge? You as Minister of Justice is in charge of border protection? Because I hear some people complaining, saying, well, the Dutch are talking about it, but they do nothing about it.
The Dutch are talking about it because within our kingdom, there is an address. There's a collective address to border management. The reality is the Netherlands has seen us as not, meaning St. Martin, as not being as stringent on our laws as we should be.
They've always seen this.
Right. So the reality is it is within our autonomy to protect our borders. But we have been laxadative in doing that. And we're paying the price for it. Now, first of all, we are the friendly island. So we welcome everyone. But if you're coming as a tourist and you fall in love with our country, the only thing that we ask is that you allow yourself, you take the steps to be regulated as a legal resident on our country. And we're not asking for anything outside of what any other territory does. One of the things that was so amazing was right after COVID, it was a big uproar because I made mention of what the law states. I didn't say anything that was decided by just my person or made a new policy or anything. it was the enforcement of the law. And in order for one to be able to have or acquire legal employment on St. Martin, or legal residency, I should say, legal residency on St. Martin, you must be able to provide proof of self-sustainability, meaning having income to suffice, rent, family, food, etc. Right? That was a big uproar. Not too long after I made that statement, I believe the Prime Minister of St. Kitts stated the same thing, or at least one who is responsible for said portfolio in St. Kitts said the same thing, and there was quiet. Couple other territories started to mention the same thing. There was quiet. So we tend to have a tendency in St. Martin to get upset with authority when the laws are enforced. But persons from other territories will tell you that can't happen in my country.
Right.
And that is one of the things that, I find sad, that we are so against our own to be able to protect our own. We are welcoming of everyone to be here. We just saying that the same way we would have to respect your territory or your home, do the same for us. So, when we look at our compliance rate, we have a lot of people on the island, but our compliance rate is very low. Why is that? Because we, for some reason, over the years, have believed that it is not necessary for us to respect our laws, and it is affecting us negatively. So once again, we are not against, because earlier in your statement you said, St. Martin has decided long ago, we will decide who comes and who doesn't. But we are a very welcoming country, so we welcome everyone to come. We're just saying that let's operate within the structure of our laws. If you're visiting, then visit. But then if you decide that you love St. Martin and you want to be here, we're only asking you to take the steps to be able to ensure that you're legally established here.
There were many movements on this island.
Yeah.
And I had them on this program too. The fear was that for St. Martiners, there was no issue with Caribbean people coming. The issue was the opening of the borders to the European Union.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard about that, but
Yes.
that was a big issue 15, 18 years ago. And that's why I mentioned that, because when people look at St. Martin today, when I drive around, I say, wow, is this St. Martin? I'm seeing all these different people walking around all over, working all over. I said, how did they get here?
Yeah.
We have more undocumented people now than in the history of this
We
island.
sure do. We sure do. And it's a sad thing that when you seek to regulate that, like I said, you have quite an uproar about it. One of the things that I want to say, though, is that we appear to be a country that is fighting ourselves, because you have St. Martiners, legal people, who calls the immigration office and says, listen, this and this and this is happening there. And the immigration officers, they go. Of course, I as minister, I get the blame for it, and that's fine. Because one thing I am as a minister is I don't get in the way of my officers. My officers have been hired to do a job. Okay, and they're doing their job. So I'm not going to be the kind of minister that picks up a phone and tells them, don't go here, don't go there, don't do this. They're doing their job, and they're paid for that on a daily basis, be it the Customs Department, immigration, police. All I ask for them to do is do your job in the correct manner. Right? Okay. Because what you don't want is that your efforts to be able to serve and protect this country get caught up in negativity, because and you're always going to have that. You're always going to have those critics there. You're always going to have those instances where the situation gets blown out of proportion, or there could be some truth to it, or it is really just blown up to be able to remove the real situation from it. But I'm not going to be that kind of minister that inhibits or tries to prohibit my staff from being able to do what they have to do.
There was a lot of talk on social media about the recent raid at a nightclub, and they said it was more personal. Did you hear that?
Well, I didn't hear about the part of it being more personal. And one of the things that I want to say is, and I said this to the immigration department a lot. One of the things you realize is that KPSM is very good, or police department is very good at publications. They keep the public very informed on a day-to-day basis about everything that they're doing. But I'm trying to get my customs department, the immigration department, and all the other agencies within justice to be more transparent with the public. Because, again, the tips comes in every single day. The immigration department, the customs, they are getting tips from our community every day.
That's good to hear.
So it is good to hear. But the notion that things are personal or these raids are happening once in a blue moon, that's so not true. Immigration is working daily, and they work on both sides of the hill.
That's good to hear.
Because there's also this notion that they only stay on the Phillipsburg side, they don't come on the Colby and Simpson Bay side.
They don't come to Simpson Bay because Simpson Bay...
That's not true. That is so not true. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I've spoken to the acting head of our immigration department and her support staff is that we need to publish our statistics.
But they come to Simpson Bay.
Put it out there. Let the people see the nationalities. It is not just Caribbean people.
But you know what, Minister? When they come to Simpson Bay, it's a big uproar.
It is. It is. Because why? Because why? Now,
we both know why.
The territory is St. Martin. It's Dutch St. Martin. Mm-hmm. That is their authority, and they're going to do their job.
So at least they're doing their job.
They have to, yes.
So our Ministry of Justice, how many workers fall on it?
We're almost 800.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes, we're almost 800. Wow. We're one of the biggest ministries. We have also, persons who are retired, etc.
Yeah.
I'm kind of circling back to the fact that even with the retroactive payment, all employees from 10-10-10 forward are inclusive in that package. But yes, we're almost 800.
That's a lot.
Large. And I thank each and every one of them for their service, be it on the front line or our administrative support staff.
What about recruitment? How is that going?
Recruitment is not as strong as we would like it to be right now. I mentioned before about budget cuts from CFT, etc. We as a ministry, we are looking at ways that we can actually make more money for the coffers. We are also trying to manage those employees who are employed by the ministry, but for whatever reason aren't showing up for work. Of course, that's
happening still.
Of course,
wow.
Of course, that is.
I thought that was the thing of the past.
It's a major issue. And those things don't go away too easy, especially when they've become comfortable with the fact that there are no consequences for it.
They're very powerful people, by the way, according to people.
Okay.
The ghost workers, minister, they've been ministers before you.
Yes.
Who tried it.
Okay.
And in the end, those ministers left office, and those people are still there.
Okay.
They're very powerful.
Okay.
What I'm saying to you is, you can't change that tradition that it's been there for so long.
And I think that is a misconception that's there. And I'm very cautious with being able to communicate that to the public because, new recruits.
Yeah.
You don't want new recruits to believe that they can come into this ministry and everything remains status quo. And you just get a job and you just get a salary slip, but you don't show up. That is going to become a thing of the past.
By the way, it's not only the Ministry of Justice.
Oh no, it is. It's wide. It really is wide. But on the outskirts, there's a lot of commentary based on the assumption that and understand what's happening.
I understand that the Dutch government's been very adamant against that particular problem with ghost workers.
Of course,
making sure that they're clean off of the books.
Of course. And that comes from the fact that we seek the financial support of the Netherlands quite often when necessary. COVID being just the most recent, and prior to that it was the hurricane. But we are a very fruitful country, and it's obvious, right? Yeah. But if you are not managing your administrations properly, then that reflects in the fact that you're saying we do not have the financial means to be able to do. And that is why I said we as the ministry are doing an observation of ourselves to see where can we generate additional incomes? There are a lot of services that we currently render that if we were to do a comparison to other territories, we'll see that we're giving away certain services for free. This must change. And these are all opportunities for us to be able to generate income for us to be able to afford things like uniforms. You know, we have staff that are in need of uniform. We have staff that are in need of certain courses. And that is another beautiful aspect that we're working on. As a matter of fact, next week I'm going to be in Curacao. We have a couple meetings with the University of Curacao as well as the ORV or the police school. We had some meetings with them a few years back, but here in Colby, where the Saramar building was, we've cleaned off that lot. That is where we plan on building our Law Enforcement Institute of St. Martin.
Oh, it's interesting.
So I am seeking to be able to have a proper institution, accredited institution established for our men and women, be it on the front line or administrative staff, any legal platforms, but even being able to imagine extend this learning facility to our fire department, ambulance department, for any type of courses that they need to learn, be it that you are coming in, so your certification or refreshers. I believe that a proper learning environment is a requirement, it is a requisite. And for that reason, and seeking to be able to ensure that with our education department going forward, the curriculums would be accredited. And so that the men and women who attend this institution can know that, once they receive that certificate, they are full-fledged in service. So we need to be able to afford these things. Right. We need to be able to afford those courses. We need to be able to afford, like I said, uniforms and any other necessities and resources that our law enforcement agencies need to be able to fully operate in their functions.
All right, in case you've just joined us, this is Oral Gibbs Live. My guest is the Minister of Justice, Minister Richardson. She's here with me on Hot 99.9 FM radio, Facebook, and YouTube. When we come back, we'll continue with the Minister Richardson right here on Oral Gibbs Live.
Hey, don't guess about your insurance. Be sure that you're covered. Like with your car, like your home. Be sure to be covered in case of a fire, flood, hurricane, or some other natural disaster. And travel insurance, because you never know what could happen when you're on vacation. You could lose your passport, your luggage, or have an accident. So be sure that you're covered.
Insure yourself fast and easy with Be Sure from the Windward Islands Bank Limited. Visit your preferred WIB branch, WIB Insurance Services, or BeSureStMartin.com. Get your Be Sure insurance at the Windward Islands Bank, your partners in progress.
For real? Somebody came in here and steal my curtains? Well, it's a good thing I'm insured with Be Sure, because even the contents of my apartment are covered. Don't play guessing games with your insurance. Be sure.
Are you be sure? Be sure.
Guest on Oral Gibbs Live is the Minister of Justice, Mr. Richardson. We have speak with her on Hot 99.9 FM radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Minister, the prosecutor's office also falls under you, right?
Yes.
And the budget, is that under your budget also?
Well, yes. So what we have to do on an annual basis is that the prosecution service, as well as our courthouse, they have to prepare an annual plan and an annual budget, and they present it to the ministry, and then the ministry would see to it as much as possible to secure those funds on the budget. Of course, the budget has to go to Parliament to be approved. And so based on what is approved in Parliament is what we're able to provide to the prosecution service.
And I used to hear some people complaining, like, when a politician is picked up for questioning, does the minister have any authority?
Absolutely none. As a matter of fact, the Minister of Justice, and that again is a
I'm glad that you mentioned that now, because a lot of people speaking about that the last time when we had the politician picked up. That's why I asked.
There's a misconception there. The Minister of Justice is not privy to that information, especially prior to the execution of the action. The Minister of Justice would be notified after it's done.
And that happens on a regular basis with you?
Oh, yes. At least I have been, I've experienced it once, being advised of that. But oftentimes those types of actions are advised to the minister after the fact. We are in a political arena, and there is trias politicas, so that's separation of powers, and it's there for a reason. And I appreciate the fact that it exists.
Okay. No, because, in St. Martin, we're a small community, and people feel, oh, okay, you're the top cop in the country.
It's not true.
Yeah.
They keep a separation with that because you don't want, and even in, you're speaking of the prosecution service, but even just with police, there's certain aspects of the investigation that the Minister of Justice is not privy to, and that is to be able to not taint or negatively interrupt or affect the investigation. So I appreciate the fact that oftentimes I am really not aware of the actions that are coming because you don't want to get caught in that. You allow the agencies to do their jobs.
Okay. The video MS, is that under you or the Prime Minister?
No, that's under the Prime Minister.
And any reason why it's not under the Minister of Justice?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure why it was decided to have that under the Prime Minister. They are a higher level of safety and security, national safety and security. But I've been really busy trying to really bring the Ministry of Justice as it is in proper structure and order, so I haven't applied any attention there.
Do they keep you in the loop?
Yes, we're supposed to, meetings at least once a month. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to be consistent about that, but I do believe that in the event of any type of serious matters, they will not hesitate to advise the Minister of Justice.
Well, what has been the most challenging thing for you as Minister of Justice?
I don't know if I've had anything that has been really that challenging for me. I have prioritized, but I wouldn't classify it as being challenging. Other than the fact that when you are dealing with the legislative process, it is a very tedious and extensive process.
Very slow.
Yes, it is. And though you may give the information, be it in these platforms, I'm doing an interview with you, I'm sharing information. You go on a radio, sharing information. You prepare town hall meetings, you prepare newsletters, so you send these things out. Somehow the information still doesn't always either resonate or arrive. And for that reason, then persons would say, or even in a newspaper, you publish, persons would say, I don't know what's going on, I didn't hear anything. And you're going, but did you not see the publication here or there? So you can always put the information out, but whether one is receptive to it is another and then also, who do you use as your point of information? Because if you are reliant on a specific body to be able to bring you the information, and that information comes to you maybe a bit skewed from the way that the minister said it, then the minister can't be held accountable for that fact. Because one of the things that I've really tried to do is be very transparent with staff. I had an intranet established because staff would say, it doesn't trickle down from management. Okay, fine. Then now I've established an intranet that sends the information directly to your email. So all you have to do is open your email and it's right before you. Whether staff is utilizing that or not is not something within my ability to know or manage. But I really try my best to be able to give the information to the staff. So if anything is challenging, it's just being able to get the staff aware of all the efforts, the status of things, that I would say.
St. Martin is a difficult place to get information across, especially if you're going to use the newspapers, because we're not really a reading population per se, and we're increasing in our reading, but a lot of people, for whatever reason, they still go for radio or word of mouth or friend telling them. I had people tell me, well, I got my news from you. So I'm not a news organization. By the way, I do talk shows, and that's it. But they're right in some context because I have you here now. It's, 44 minutes, and I think you've shared with us a lot of information that people don't know. So
Okay.
it all depends, you know.
Platforms you use.
Right, yes.
Okay.
And I think we are changing
Okay.
with a younger population, but that takes some time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, well, so we use social media as well to be able to put out information. And I also have a very open door policy, especially for my staff. I have 2 office spaces, and one of them is in the main government building, but then one of them is also upstairs, the immigration department where our staff bureau is. And I chose at the beginning of this year
Yeah.
to position myself at Illage Road because I wanted to be close to the team who were working on the placement letters, the calculations, everything that has to do with the personnel. I wanted to be at arm's length for them. So, and that in itself proved to be a very wise decision to have made because we've been able to complete it. As I mentioned earlier, it is at a stage right now where the Ministry of Finance is busy with being able to make that budget amendment so that when Parliament resumes and the minister goes back to Parliament, the discussion, and hopefully we will gain the approval, because that is where the monies and the comfort for His Excellency to be able to sign that LBHAM lies.
So how is the pilot program coming along?
The pilot program is fairly well in terms of how many applications were fully completed in that process. I believe it's between 10 to 15, so we didn't have a large number.
10 to 15?
Yeah, it wasn't really a large number.
You shocked me there.
Yeah. So we have a lot of companies that did not react to it. We have a lot of companies that have reacted, but paperwork not properly in order. And so when we hear companies say things like the process is tedious, it takes too long, it's more or less the same type of process if you want to acquire a loan at a bank. Now, I know the process in banking as well is an extensive one, but that is something we want. We want to be able to gain that financial acquisition, right? So we take the steps we need to, but you have to be able to see your employees as an asset as well. So whatever steps it is that's necessary to ensure that they are in proper legal standing on the island, it should be worth it.
Do people ask you how different this is than, say, the Brooks Accord?
Well, the two don't even go with each other.
They're completely different.
The Brooks Tower approach was a grace period to allow persons to acquire their residency.
So that had nothing to do with employers.
No. And then this pilot project is the sound of many persons coming to the immigration department with job letters.
Okay.
Now, immigration says to them, you're presenting a job letter, but by rights, your employer should file for you. The response from the employees has been, my employer refuses to.
Okay.
When you check with the employers, they're saying the process is too long. So the Ministry of VSA, TEAT, and Justice, we have a covenant. And in that covenant agreement, Justice and VSA said, let's come together and test this. So we created the pilot project, which would then give us the opportunity to see if an application from start to finish for the work as well as the residency can be done in 30 days. Now, I must say that especially on the justice side, the immigration side, the immigration department by law has 4 months to be able to process an application. And one may say 4 months is long, but you have to understand that this department is not handling one application, 2 or 3. They are handling hundreds of applications. So they need to have a realistic time period to be able to assess, to call applicants in, to complete the advice, for it to go through the checks and balance, and then arrive at the minister for the minister to sign. If we say that, it's 2 months or so, with hundreds of applications at a time, there's no way we are going to meet that deadline. But we're trying to see if our steps and methods can be fine-tuned so that we can do it in a shorter period of time.
I'm still so surprised.
Flabbergasted with the number.
So are you really? That shocked me.
Yeah, I see it. But that is the reality of the situation. And, the commentary that comes out of that experience is still a matter where employers are seeking to say that the process is too long, they're asking you for too much, etc. But the reality of it is, anywhere that you go in the world, they have their criteria as to what is necessary to be able to apply for what is needed, and we need to be able to confirm. In some instances, you have employers that the length of time it takes is long because they haven't been paying their taxes. So when that assessment comes about,
that's a key word.
Okay, right? The reality comes out. A lot of employers are refusing still because they don't want to comply.
I can understand.
But of course, instead of just being honest and say that, government gets the blame.
In case you've just joined us, I'm Oral. This is Oral Gives Live. My guest is Minister of Justice, Minister Richardson, on Hot 99.9 FM radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Minister, what about the Coast Guard? Coast Guard fall under you?
So Coast Guard does partially. It's a shared organization between St. Martin and the Netherlands. Coast Guard is a very well-structured organization, and I really admire their level of structure. Of course, in every agency there are challenges, but they do fall under the Ministry of Justice. We have an amount that we have to contribute along with within the kingdom, so each territory.
You talking about
it's I think 1 million is
so
our
it's not
portion.
too many,
We're the smaller part.
We're the smallest island.
And with the base etc. being in Curacao etc. Curacao and Aruba, they have a bigger portion to put in. I think the Netherlands has the largest contribution to the Coast Guard. St. Martin is the smallest.
Do they update you on what's taking place?
Oh yes, I'm very much so updated. Captain Livingstone and we have a change of guard with a directorship coming up pretty soon. But I'm very much so abreast with updates from them, yes.
I see they're doing quite a great job in the lagoon and outside and patrolling and checking all the boats. It's very good.
They are good. Thank you very much for that compliment to them.
So, did I miss anything in the Ministry of Justice?
We have a large ministry. The prison is another one of our hot topics in terms
Build
of
a new prison, right?
we're busy with UNOPS to get that done. And we're looking forward to even having NRPB being our local engineering firm on the island soon take part in supporting us to be able to see that achieved. So I'm very happy with the progress we're making thus far. Our recent discussions has been surrounding what level of security we would like our institution to be, and of course an assessment with the types of crimes or criminals that we have encountered on the island is what's going to play a role in that. I'd like to see us move though into a space of time where the need for prisons would be less because our people are choosing to do right, and I hope that could happen. It might be wishful thinking, but I have a right. I have a wish.
Nothing wrong with that at all. The Phillipsburg Police Station. Anything going to be done there? Because that place is
need a new one,
man,
right?
Yeah.
I'm happy you said that because that is what we believe needs to happen as well, and I hope that within the near future we would be able to indeed demolish that building and build a new and more state-of-the-art police department.
The conditions too are pretty bad when you look at if a person is detained for a day or two. The conditions there are not ideal at all.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's been discussed by many people when they're picked up and they have to put in the cell, and they're put in the cell sometimes with other criminals. They're waiting there, simple, ordinary citizens. That's a big complaint.
Okay. I would have to look into that a little bit more, but I think that we have to be careful with looking at historical experiences to where we are right now.
So you're saying that today that's not.
It's not as bad as it used to be. So, for example, you have CPT, which is an international platform that ensures that persons who are in holding who are imprisoned, that we are meeting Mandela standards, human rights standards. St. Martin has done great improvements to be able to address that. We're not fully there yet. One of the more stagnant issues that we have to address right now is that medical attendance, that medical address. So if someone asks for medical assistance, that being administered within 24 hours is very important. But the ministry is relying on our physician to be able to come to our call. So the procedures are being followed, but you have to ensure that your medical support is arriving to do what's necessary. I don't know if you saw a few weeks or maybe a month or more ago, I had a meeting with the St. Martin Medical Center exploring the possibility of us introducing a rotation system with doctors and nurses who are interested. The prison is about to put out an ad for nurses who would be interested in working. I believe that even before putting out this ad, we've received some 4 applications of nurses who are interested in working in this capacity, and I'm quite grateful for that, because the prison is not an institution that most persons run to. Want to be a part of, so I'm happy about that. But when it comes to the facility itself where they are being held, I think it's important and I'll have to speak to Chief John about this, but maybe one of these days you can take a visit for yourself to see what that looks like.
Well, I was going to ask you that, because in the former Nelson days, I had a good working relationship and was given full access to the prison at Point Blanche.
Okay.
And I hope that can be awarded to us again, so we can show the people.
I think we
what's
can. I
there.
think we
That'd
can
be
arrange
great.
that.
Yeah.
I think. When we talk about the prison, I don't know if you've ever seen the comparison of where we are and where we used to be. We have a maintenance team that is made up as well of inmates that are a part of that team. So there are recreational areas. There are outspace that was completely transformed. The grounds
from
were
when I
painted.
was there the last time, yeah.
You really need a visit.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we will arrange that.
I appreciate that. Minister, we out of time. I
Are
only
we?
have
Okay.
only 40 seconds, so all yours.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for your viewers and your listeners that have tuned in and that have taken an opportunity to sit and listen to what all the hard efforts that we have been applying for and to the Ministry of Justice. We're not perfect. We still have a lot to go, but the attention that the ministry needs is being definitely applied. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and you've been doing a great job. It's good. I don't oftentimes say that.
Thank you.
People see you went into that position and they had their doubts. I don't think they have any doubts, right? All right. So much success.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Gibbs.
You're welcome. And that's it for now. See you next time right here on Earl Gibbs Live on Hot 99.9 FM radio station, Facebook, and YouTube. Take care. Bye.